Welcome back. We have Congresswoman Katie Porter here of the 45th District, who was on with us in October, and here you are again in right in the midst of our primary, and I know there's a lot going on, so tell us what's happened since the last time you were here.
Yeah, what's going on right now in Washington is we're getting ready to pass a budget for the next year, and so President Trump has put out his proposed budget, and so I wanted to talk a little bit with you today about what's in that budget, what's not in that budget, and invite the residents of Laguna Woods to let us know their opinions about what they want to see as funding priorities and make their voices heard.
Okay, so there are a lot of concerns that you have, so why don't we start with your concerns first, and then we'll see, you know, what are some of the good things about it?
So one of the concerns with the president's budget is that he has promised during his campaign, made very clear that he would protect Social Security and Medicare. And these are vital programs that older Americans rely on for their health care, to make ends meet, to have a secure retirement. Yet President Trump's proposed budget proposes a $500 billion cut to Medicare. And that would be devastating to people being able to continue to enjoy health care and not be swamped with premiums and copays and prescription drug prices, which is already a problem for seniors.
Right.
It also proposes a $24 billion cut to Social Security. Social Security is one of our best programs in terms of lifting people up out of poverty, making sure that every American, every hardworking American is able to retire with dignity. So I'm really concerned, one, that the president is backtracking on promises that he made to the American people, and two, I'm concerned for residents of Orange County about what these cuts could do to their daily lives and their abilities to take care of themselves.
Right, now I was talking with some other people in regards to what you just mentioned. Where is it that we can read about this? Is this something that is open to the public, or is it only for you guys to be able to look at?
The president's budget's a public document. You can go to whitehouse.gov and read about what the president's proposing. And then the Democrats in the House, as the majority party, will come up with our counter to that budget. Then we'll have budget committee hearing meetings, and then in June we'll begin the appropriations process. So coming up with how we spend our hard-earned taxpayer dollars is really a two-part process. Part one is the budget. It's kind of the bones, the architecture, and then the appropriations is the more specific level dollar grants. And so at this stage, it's really important for seniors who rely on Social Security, for whom cuts would be devastating. I personally think we ought to be talking about expanding Social Security, especially to help people in high cost of living areas like Orange County. So the fact that he's proposing to cut from Social Security and cut from Medicare, I think is something that should really be of concern. And so I'm inviting people to make their voices heard on this and let the president know so that he can be responsive to them as well as Congress can be responsive to them.
Right, right. All right, well, now let's talk a little bit about some of the funds that you were talking about. What are they proposing to use them for instead of those two items? So
the president proposes an increase to military spending, and he proposes additional tax cuts for a handful of large corporations and the very wealthy. So it's really important to remember that Social Security and Medicare have long enjoyed bipartisan support. These are some of the most popular Republicans, Democrats coming together across the aisle, working together on these programs. So to propose cutting these programs is really a change from what we've seen from any president of either party.
Right.
I'm also really concerned because President Trump's budget proposes to cut funding for science and medical research, including at the National Institutes of Health, at the Centers for Disease Control. Particularly with coronavirus, this is not a good time to be withdrawing that public funding, but also because we all benefit. Our economy benefits and our society benefits when we invest in life-saving cures and the creation of biomedical jobs right here in Orange County for our kids and grandkids to enjoy.
One thing I wanted to go back on is talking about taxes. Now, as you know, state of California, all of our housing prices are very, very high. And so when they had the one where you could only claim so much of a write-off, you know, it really affected a lot of people here in California. What would you suggest?
Yep, so that was called President Trump, as part of the tax cuts before I was elected. He passed a tax bill, and my predecessor voted for it. It was one of the reasons I was inspired to run for Congress, that would cap the state and local tax deductions at $10,000. And that is a problem for people in our community because of our property taxes, our high property values. They hit that cap, and it ends up meaning they're paying more.
Right.
And it really disadvantages certain states that have high costs of living. And it was a big change to families.
Right.
So since we've had an income tax, we've had that principle that you could deduct your state and local
Right.
taxes.
Right.
So I led the bipartisan effort in the House, and we were able to pass a bill to eliminate that $10,000 cap. That bill has now gone to the Senate, where it is sitting with Senator Mitch McConnell. He has not taken action. So as we approach tax day coming up in here in April, it is really important that people make their voices heard
Right.
to the Senate that they want to see that cap on the state and local tax deductions removed.
Oh, okay, perfect. And then what actually does the president's budget do for the seniors in our community?
So the president's budget would not be good news because of the Social Security and Medicare cuts.
Right.
There are things that I would like to work with this president on, and I'll give you a terrific example that directly affects both seniors and non-seniors. The president in his State of the Union address talked about his willingness to sign immediately and put into law any bipartisan bill that would help reduce prescription drug costs. The great news is that the House of Representatives passed that bill. It's called H.R. 3, the Lower Prescription Drug Costs Now Act. And so that bill had bipartisan support. It came out of the House. It's sitting over with the Senate. So we would love to see the president go ahead and ask the Senate to vote on that bill and sign it into law. That bill would cap the cost of prescription drugs. It would allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices and would help eliminate some of the problems and gaps that we see in Medicare for seniors today.
Right. Well, yeah, some prescription drugs are just out of control, unfortunately. What about, now you did mention about funding for scientific and medical research. Is there anything that he has done to help that area?
Well, we've heard the president say the cuts in the science and research community are smaller. So we're seeing a proposed cut there of about 6%,
Okay.
Which is smaller than what we're seeing, for example, with the Environmental Protection Agency, a 29% cut, which is a concern to a lot of people. Again, coastal California will be heavily impacted by global warming. And so because we're a coastal community, we're a desert community, changes in temperature, changes in ocean levels really will make a difference here. So I would say that the most devastating cuts that we're seeing are in the Medicare, Social Security, and then the Environmental Protection Agency funding.
Okay.
The cuts in science and research are smaller, but they're really important to fully fund those areas.
Yeah, you addressed something to the effect that residents want to grow old in their homes. So what is happening now that's going to affect that?
Yep. So there's a program out there called the Administration for Community Living, and what it does is help people age in place. And so it's an agency that's job it is to identify kinds of adaptations that people could make to their home and support services for seniors who want to stay in their homes rather than transitioning to assisted living or nursing care. And the president proposes to cut funding for that program. Overall, the president proposes an $8 billion cut to the Housing and Urban Development Department. Again, as we're struggling with a homeless problem here in Orange County, that's a bad it's a bad effect for Orange County to have the president taking away funding as we're trying to come up with solutions. And we need a federal partner. We need the president to step up and partner with us in trying to find solutions for people who are either without housing or housing insecure.
Right, and I know that there's several resources and agencies here in Orange County that are moving forward to helping with that.
Our Orange County United Way is doing terrific work, and they're making a lot of progress. We've been doing a lot of work at the federal level to reduce the homelessness incidents among veterans, and also reducing the suicide rate among veterans. So this is another great area of bipartisan cooperation where I look forward to partnering with the president to try to help people.
Perfect. And then you've been doing a lot of work on the census. So what's been happening there?
So a couple important reminders for people. The 2020 census, it's 2020, so it's time for us all to be counted. It is so important for everybody to complete the census. And it's going to change this year. So you're going to get a letter in the mail coming up in mid-March. It will give you a code, and then you will go online to complete the census. So this is the first time that we're going to ask people to complete the census online. I want to remind people that if they have any questions about any piece of mailing or anybody who comes to their door and claims to be part of the census, that they should not hesitate to call our office or go to the census website and verify that information. We've seen, very unfortunately, President Trump sent out a tweet the other day saying that he had selected people to complete a census. It was actually a fundraiser. The Republican National Committee sent out mailers across the country, including here in California, that said that people have been selected to be part of a 2020 official census. It's actually a fundraiser for the Republican National Committee.
I see.
So I don't want anyone to be confused. There are billions and billions of dollars at stake for Orange County.
Right.
And so it's really important that everyone know what's coming, make sure they're actually completing the official census, and we stop these scams. And so I've called on the census director to make sure that everyone halts, Republican, Democrat, nobody should be politicizing this census.
So when they'll receive something in the mail that will instruct them to fill it out
Correct.
online?
Correct.
Okay. So nobody really should be coming to your door at all?
Well, so what they're going to do is the first wave will be a letter that will come in
Okay.
mid-March. Then Census Day is April 1, so that's the day that we're going to try to really make a public relations push to get everyone to
Okay.
complete it.
All right.
If you don't complete it online, there could be door-to-door follow-up
I see.
at that point.
All right.
But everybody should have an official tag, and there's a number that you can call to, again, verify that information. So I just encourage, especially our seniors, to be sure to be counted. This is critically important to making sure that we get the funding we need to support our seniors as they age, but also to be wary about scams, particularly scams by mail, which we've unfortunately seen thousands of mailers go out from the Republican National Committee, which we've heard from seniors and adult caregivers of seniors that this is causing confusion for people about whether it's actually the United States Census, and in fact is not.
Oh, wow, okay. And then one last thing is to talk about voting. I mean, obviously, we're in the primary right now, and maybe you can touch a little on that.
Absolutely. So Orange County has changed how it's going to vote. Everybody who's a registered voter should have received a ballot in the mail, and you can either put that in the mail. You don't need postage, so we say no postage, no problem. I think a lot of people like to put that stamp on it, makes them feel more confident, but you can truly just drop it in a mailbox. And then there are also voting centers that are open. A lot of them opened up this weekend, and then more will be opening up next weekend. You can go to any voting center in our community, but don't go to your traditional polling place because it may or may not be an official voting center. So the great news is easier to vote on weekends, easier to vote in the evenings, longer voting period, and everyone got that vote by mail ballot. The last thing I'll just remind people is some people have said it's too late to register to vote. It is not. You can go to a voting center.
Perfect.
If you didn't get your ballot, it's not too late to go online and request one. So I encourage everyone to make sure that if they didn't get the ballot, if they lost that ballot, if you think your spouse recycled your ballot, it is not too late to get a new one. You can walk into any voter registration center and do that.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I hope we covered everything you wanted to talk about.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to have you. And remember, if you want any information about what we just discussed, you can go to porter.house.gov. We'll be right back.